my question would be, what's maybe best next step for families to continue to have this conversation in the home, or maybe what are practical ways that parents could start?
Well, and I'll answer that question really by reiterating how you're framing it. This idea that we don't know it all.
Yep.
And it actually isn't a knowledge gap. It's an experience gap.
That's really good.
So in other words, what race is bringing to the surface in terms of the larger conversation we're having, both as a country, even as a world, and then particularly as families, is that who we are, our backgrounds, our skin colors, our cultural differences, impact the experiences we have as we go about our lives. And one of the things that we can help our kids and even help ourselves do in trying to understand what's happening here is to realize that we have an experience gap that we can only close by relationships with other people that have different experiences than ourselves. And they're able to notice things in us and in the world that we oftentimes, like you're suggesting, can't see. Not because we're unable in the sense that like we don't have enough cognitive ability or emotional empathy. We just can't see because we don't have their eyes. We just can't experience it because we haven't walked on their feet. And so for me, a really important invitation for parents and families, for all of us, as we resource ourselves for the conversation, is to invite others into it.
I love that.
To take an audit almost of the relationships that we have in our circles and ask the question, like, how much homogeneity is there? Like, how many people have the same socioeconomic status that I do? How many have the same skin color? They live in the same area. You know, my wife and I live in South Minneapolis off 25th Avenue between 36th and 37th Street. 38th Street in Chicago was where George Floyd was killed. It's literally 12 blocks from my house. And so for us, the proximity to the unrest and to the trauma was a really impactful part for me. And now I have eyes to see that those living in the suburbs or in the rural areas or other parts of even downtown, they didn't necessarily see. And so for me, the invitation is, what can it look like to build around us a community of people that represents the diversity that's going to help us close the experience gap.
I love that.
So we can understand better.
I love that. And I love what you said, like, it's not like you have to have knowledge and all the answers, right? Because we don't. And that's why I'm even having conversations, because I don't have all the answers. I'm never going to. But I feel like it puts me a little bit more at ease when it's like, no, we're closing the gap so that you can get more experiences. So that's tangible for me, right? And that's tangible for families to go out and experience, or take a little self-diagnosis and be like, what is our family exposed to? What are we not exposing them to that we should be, maybe, right? So,
and the danger there, right, is oftentimes we can look at this from a utilitarian or like it's kind of like we're just trying to fill the gap, and then we use people. They become tokens for us to feel like we I've done the audits, and I probably do need some poor people in my life or some black people in my life, and like all of a sudden now people become the means to an end. And the end is for us to like maybe lower anxiety levels or to feel like we're not racist or whatever that may, and so for me it's also a very delicate invitation that we're very mindful of the relationships we're trying to build, and we're not trying to build them just so that we can say, oh, I do have a black friend, I do know a poor person, and almost then try to like mitigate our own contributions to the hurt and the pain and the trauma in our world, regardless of who we are. And so for me, as people take steps toward that, both kind of an inventory of sorts of the relationships within their circles and potentially a pursuit of what it would look like to diversify those relationships, to be very careful behind the motivations behind that.
Wow. And that's even just like challenging to me too, of just like what's your motivation in even reaching out or doing those things or getting in closer proximity? Because if it is just to check that off the list and be like, oh yeah, or make yourself feel better, right, about your state. So I love that you said like it's a delicate invitation. I think that's really, really important.